If you're trying Arms Warrior but feel like you're just pressing buttons and you don't know what you're doing, this video will fix that. I'll walk you through exactly what you need to press, when to press it, and why. Arms Warrior is built around a simple loop. Keep bleeds active, manage rage, and use your core abilities on cooldown. But the real depth comes from how all this ties together, especially when you add your hero talents on top. First, I'll introduce your bleeds. You want Rend and Deep Wounds ticking at all times. Rend is applied manually and lasts 21 seconds. Once the target drops below 35% HP, the Bloodletting talent lets Mortal Strike refresh it automatically, and Deep Wounds is applied by Mortal Strike, Cleave, or Warbreaker. Next, your core rotation, Mortal Strike, Overpower, and Rage. Your core rotation is built around Mortal Strike and Overpower. Mortal Strike is your primary rage spender, dealing heavy damage and applying deep wounds. You want to press it on cooldown. Overpower is free, buffs your next Mortal Strike, and has 2 charges, so you'll weave it in between Mortal Strikes whenever is possible. Your Rage builds passively through auto attacks and crits, Ravager, and talents like Battlelord and Tactician, which reward you for simply playing your rotation correctly. The goal is to avoid overcapping Rage, while always having enough to press Mortal Strike when it's ready. You'll also use Execute under 20% HP, and Slam only when nothing else is available. Before you even pull, you want to have like this mental checklist. Are you in battle stance? Is Battle Shout active? Can you start in with a charge? And that's pretty much your baseline. Once you add in the Colossus hero talents, it becomes even better. The Colossus hero talents revolve around Demolish, a powerful channeled cooldown empowered by Colossal Might. Every time you press Mortal Strike or Cleave when it hits 3 or more targets, you gain a stack of Colossal Might, up to 10 stacks. Mortal Strike or Cleave on 3 or more targets grants 1 stack of Colossal Might, and 2 if it crits. When you reach 10 stacks, Demolish deals up to double damage. Extra stacks beyond 10 reduce Demolish's cooldown by 2 seconds. Demolish also debuffs the enemy with the dominance of the Colossal hero talent, increasing their damage taken and reducing their damage dealt. Let's shift from theory to practice. Now that you understand your core abilities and the Colossus hero talents, let's walk through how your rotation actually plays out. Not as a cast sequence, but as a decision-making flow. Think of it like a mental checklist you run through every few seconds. We'll go through most important priorities first, the things you should be asking yourself in real time. The first priority is Rend active. If the target is above 35% HP, apply it or refresh it. If they're below 35% HP and you're using the Bloodletting talent, Mortal Strike will handle it. Second priority are my major cooldowns ready: Thunderous Roar, Ravager, and Avatar. Use them in sequence when available. Make sure bleeds are active before Thunderous Roar. Third priority, can I use Warbreaker? Warbreaker is a short cooldown burst tool that applies deep wounds and makes enemies take 30% more damage for 10 seconds. It's not your biggest cooldown, but it amplifies everything else, especially Mortal Strike and Demolish. Use it on cooldown to keep your damage rolling unless Demolish is nearly ready. If Demolish is coming off cooldown soon, you can wait up to 10 seconds to line it up with Warbreaker for extra burst. If Warbreaker is further away, just use Demolish on cooldown, which ties into our fourth priority: can I use Demolish? Use it as soon as it's available. Extra Mortal Strikes reduce cooldown passively after 10 stacks of Colossal Might. Here's how to play around it in your opener. On pull, you don't need to wait for 10 stacks. Open with Rend to apply a bleed, use your cooldowns, Thunderous Roar, Ravager, Avatar, then Warbreaker to amplify everything coming up, and then I would just use 1 Mortal Strike into Demolish. You can squeeze in a bit more Mortal Strikes if you want before the Warbreaker window ends. After that, your Mortal Strikes will naturally build Colossal Might and you'll use Demolish on cooldown, preferably with 10 stacks. Fifth priority are Mortal Strike and Overpower ready. As mentioned earlier, these two form your core loop. Mortal Strike is your highest damage contributor in single target, and Overpower is free, gives rage, and buffs Mortal Strike. Sixth priority, Slam or Execute as filler. If everything else is on cooldown and you've already used Overpower twice and Mortal Strike isn't ready, press Slam. It's your lowest priority filler, but it's better than pressing nothing. When the target is under 20% HP, Swap Slam for Execute. And that's how you handle a single target. Now let's look at what changes when you're facing 3 or more enemies. When you're facing 3 or more enemies, your Arms Warrior rotation shifts into a different rhythm. While the same core principles apply, maintaining bleeds, spending rage, and using cooldowns, your priority system changes to better take advantage of Cleave, Thunderclap, and multi-target burst windows. Your top priority in AoE: apply or refresh deep wounds and rend. Use Cleave to apply or refresh deep wounds across multiple enemies, and use Thunderclap to refresh rend on multiple enemies as well. And then your cooldowns just slightly different from single target: Thunderous Roar, Avatar, then you insert Sweeping Strikes, and then Ravager. Start with Thunderous Roar to apply a heavy-hitting bleed to all enemies. Activate Avatar next. It boosts all damage, and thanks to Blade Master's Torment, it also grants 8 seconds of Sweeping Strikes and reduces Cleave's cooldown during Avatar. Then after Avatar, use Sweeping Strikes to cleave single-target abilities like Mortal Strike and Overpower onto a second target. This not only does 2-target damage, it also builds stacks for the Collateral damage talent, which empowers your next cleave after sweeping ends. The mechanic is very simple. Every single target ability that hits a second target during sweeping strikes gives you a stack of collateral damage. Once sweeping ends, your next cleave consumes all the stacks to deal 25% damage per stack. If you're talented into Fervor of Battle, your cleave will also cast Slam on your primary target, which gets swept, adding even more stacks passively. But here's the important part. If you notice your sweeping is about to end and you build up several stacks of collateral, you can quickly check if you've got extra buffs or debuffs like Warbreaker, Avatar, or Ravager to line up with that big cleave for a massive hit. It's not something you build your rotation around, but being aware of it lets you capitalize when everything else lines up. Then drop Ravager, not just for its damage, but also because of the unhinged talent. Every couple of Ravager ticks, cast a free Mortal Strike on nearby enemies, giving you massive Colossal Might generation in AoE. Together, these cooldowns create your biggest AoE spike, and since you're running Anger Management, every rage spent reduces cooldowns of Warbreaker and Ravager, helping you cycle through these windows faster. Then Warbreaker, as explained earlier, Warbreaker debuffs enemies, making them take 30% more damage, and it applies deep wounds to everyone it hits. Time it during or right before your cooldowns to amplify everything that follows, especially Demolish. And Demolish still remains one of your strongest AoE nukes. It hits everything in range up to 8 targets at full value and scales from your Colossal Might stacks. In AoE, you build these stacks extremely quickly. Every cleave grants 1 stack per target, and every cleave crit gives 2. Unless Warbreaker is coming up in the next 10 seconds, just use Demolish on cooldown. Then your core AoE loop. Cleave is your highest priority rotational ability in AoE. It applies deep wounds, generates rage, and builds Colossal Might. Use it as often as possible when your major cooldowns are down. Mortal Strike and Overpower still have value in AoE, especially during sweeping strikes, but outside of that, they take a back seat to Cleave. Use them only when Cleave is on cooldown. Other situational abilities and filler: Execute is only usable below 20% HP, and during sweeping strikes, it's strong but situational. Thunderclap is pressed again if Rend is about to expire. Slam remains your bottom priority filler, only press it when there's truly nothing else to cast. Arms Warrior might look simple on the surface, just bleeds, rage, and big cooldowns, but once you understand how it all ties together with Demolish, Colossal Might, and your talent synergies, it becomes one of the most satisfying specs to master. Whether you're slamming bosses or cleaving packs apart, the spec rewards players who think ahead, manage your cooldowns, and stay aggressive. If this guide helped you to feel more confident about Arms Warrior, drop a like, leave a comment if you have any questions, and if you want more guides like this one for every spec in World of Warcraft, don't forget to subscribe. As always, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.